summer's not over yet, so on today's segment, I'm going to show you how to make this dainty, cute bow tie waist skirt with a flounce hem. Draft a copy of your skirt sloper and pin the darts closed. If you don't have a skirt sloper, you can go ahead and draft one of your own by following the link below this video. Now use a ruler and obtain the measurement of the front and back waistline. Take that measurement and add 10 inches. The belt or sash will be 3 inches wide and the length is the measurement of the front and back sloper plus 10 inches. At the end of the belt or sash, whichever you prefer, draw a 45-degree diagonal line. Add your 1/2 inch seam allowance. Place the skirt pattern on the belt pattern so that the side seam is hitting the edge of the belt. Trace the side seam outline and darken with a pencil. Add in the seam allowance. To create the skirt flounce, go up 4 inches from the bottom of the skirt. I will demonstrate on the front skirt and you'll go ahead and do the same thing for the back skirt. Use a rotary cutter or scissor to cut away. Draft as many 1-inch lines until you get to the end of the paper. One thing that I forgot to mention is to identify the center front on my pattern piece. Cut the lines without separating them from each other so they look very similar to a fringe. Tape the pattern on a new piece of paper and separate the bars by 1 inch. Use a French curve ruler to smooth out the curves on the hem and the top edge. I didn't plan in advance and I didn't have a long enough piece of paper, so I didn't anticipate running out of space on the one that I'm using. So I'm going to have to cut out the flounce pattern, tape it onto a fresh piece of paper, and add in my seam allowances. You can avoid the additional step by just using a bigger piece of paper. You see? Easy peasy. To create the skirt facing, close up your darts and come down 2 inches from the top edge of the paper. I'm going to do the front, you're going to do the same thing to the back of the skirt. To check that the lines from the front and back match, lay them on top of each other. Pin the skirt to a new piece of paper with the grain line and trace the facing for the front and back. Trace the outline of the facing and darken with a pencil. I added the seam allowance to both pieces before cutting them out. Take the back piece and overlap it with the front to create a continuous pattern. Cut the pattern on the fold at the center front. Stay stitch the flounce a 1/4 of an inch from the top edge. Clip into the curve without going into the stitches. Pinning the flounce to the skirt can be a little challenging, but don't fret. The flounce is on a bias, so it stretches. Also, you could continue clipping in so it could fully expand. Stretch the flounce out and pin on both ends before pinning your way into the middle section. Stitch the flounce and the skirt using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. The darts were sewn and the flounces were attached to the skirts. Now, let's move on to the belt. Place the belt right sides together and pin all along the edge with the straighter edge left open. You'll need the opening to turn the sash or the belt right side out. Once you've sewn the pieces together, trim the allowance down to 1/4 inch. Clip right at the tip of the sash before turning it inside out. Use the back of a pencil or a point turner to push out the point. Steam press before attaching it to the front of the skirt. Now place the back pieces over the front, right sides together, and pin along the side seam. If the seam allowance on your hem is 1 inch, the finished hem will be 1/2 inch. Now, if you chose 2 inches, then the finished hem will be 1 inch. I chose 1 inch, so I will mark off 1 inch from the hem using a white pencil. Remember that I have the 1 inch seam allowance, so I'm going to fold 1/2 inch twice. And what this will do is encase the raw edge in the fold. When you get to your second fold, make sure that it's touching that 1 inch hemline and pin. Now just top stitch and remove the pins as you're sewing along. And don't forget to press the hem. That skirt is not done until that hem is pressed. Thank you again for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.